Hello, this is going to be a short video. I'm just going to go over what you need to do if your power valve is too rich. So this isn't a vacuum selection. This is when you step in the throttle and then the vacuum starts to drop and the power valve kicks in. You can see that with a wideband. And it's just simply too rich. What do you do? So I'm going to take this metering block off and show you what you need to do in that situation. And I apologize for the background noise. I've got a heater going back here. It's making some noise, but it is quite cold outside. So let me get this set up and I'll walk through what you need to do if your power valve is too rich. So you put your carburetor together and you're cruising down the road and you've picked your jet size and you tip in the throttle. And you notice that when the power valve kicks in, and you can tell this because you have a wideband sensor and a vacuum gauge. And in my case, I've picked a 9.5 vacuum power valve, which is supposed to start enriching the fuel at 9.5 inches of vacuum. So I'm cruising along at 15 inches of vacuum and I start tipping in the throttle. It drops, and at about 9.5 inches of vacuum, the power valve opens and starts to enrich the fuel mixture. And we need that so we don't overheat pistons, overheat valves, etc. But it's too rich. Let's say you go from, well, I'll give you this example. This one with the main jet, when I'm in the main jet at about 15 inches of vacuum or 14 inches of vacuum, it's running right where I want it to be, and most guys would think that's probably a little bit lean, but it's about 15.5 to 1. But that's what I want to do with this to try and get the best fuel economy out of it. And then when I tip in the throttle and the power valve kicks in, it'll richen it up and keep me from burning parts. And I have a wideband. I can watch things in case it gets too lean, and I can stay out of that area. So I'm cruising at 15.5 to 1. I tip in the throttle, and this will go to about 10 or 11 to 1. Too rich in the power valve. It has nothing to do with the vacuum setting of the power valve, which is kind of determined by the spring. That's what determines when it opens. So what do we do? Well, here's what we do. Get this out. So from the factory, poly power valves, or any power valve for that matter, metering blocks or passages are drilled. And they're typically drilled to a certain setting where the manufacturer of the carb expects that carb to work. So if it's a street carb, that hole's going to be pretty small because you don't need a lot of extra fuel on a street car. If it's a race vehicle, they're going to make that hole a little bigger. They're trying to richen it up even more. So this is just a street carb. This one started out at about 46 thousandths, I believe. And I think that I've got it down to about 40 right now. Let me measure here and find out. Easy way to find out what you're doing here is use number drill bits. So that's a 42. This is, there, that's a 40. And you can use the base of that drill bit to check the hole size. And in this case, this is a 40. So I've got these down from the stock setting of 46 to about 40, which is still just a little bit too big. So I'm going to even drop it a little bit further. Now the bad thing is I only have two drill bit choices here. I've got a 39 and I've got a 30. What I would really like to have is about a 35, but I don't have that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try the 30 and see if it's too lean or too rich. I can always pop it back apart and bore that oversized to 39 and give it another try. So a do-it-yourselfer way to do this is just to simply buy some of these thick 632 brass plugs. Kind of hard to see, but you can order these from various online retailers. It's just a small brass plug that's not hollow. You can see that there's no hole drilled through that. They're not expensive at all. And then what we'll do is I've already done this, but you'll drill and tap this hole to 632, and then you can just screw in those plugs once you've drilled them to any size you want. You can see that 40 thousandths hole in that one. Pop this other one out. So those are just drilled and tapped to 632. You blow out all the chips when you're done with carb cleaner or brake cleaner. Compressed air works really good too. And now I can change the size of that power valve channel restrictor to anything that I want. So what I'm going to do is set it up and drill these to 30. Put it back together, give it a try and see what it does. Alright, so we have a 30 thousandths hole drilled in there, in both of them. which probably will be too small. I know that going in. I just mixed up my jets. Let's see. Where's my 40 thousandths one? Yeah, that's 40 thousandths, so we'll set that aside. That is not. There's my 240 thousandths, so we'll set that aside. And then it's just a simple matter of screwing these in to our drilled and tapped passage. If I can get to start straight. And there we have it. Now I think I'm going to have to touch this up with a grinder just a little bit, otherwise it's going to hit the power valve when it goes in. Yeah, I'm going to have to touch that up just a little bit. Alright, I just took a file and I took a few strokes off the edge of those plugs. Now my power valve will screw in. And we'll bolt it back together. While I'm here, I want to look and see what jet size I have in here. I think it's 68s, but I am not sure. '67s, Now, some guys will say that you can't do that with a drill bit, and you must use a special jet reamer. But I've been doing it this way for a long time, and I get away with it, and it does work. Is it ideal? No, probably not. I mean, there is always a chance that you're going to get one hole drilled a slightly different shape or a slightly different size than the other because you're just using a drill bit. But I've been pretty lucky doing it this way. So 31 thousandths, that's smaller than any factory offing. It might be too small for this vehicle, we'll find out. But this is, relatively speaking, this is a small V8 engine. It's only a 302. It's only a 5-liter Ford, so it doesn't need a lot of fuel. And it doesn't have a radical cam in it. It's not something that needs a lot of fuel. Now this power valve, like I said, it's probably just a little bit too aggressive. It should probably be, instead of a 9.5 I'm thinking it probably should be like a 7.5. And I think it's because the vehicle that it's in, it's a big, not a big heavy vehicle, but it's heavier than your typical Mustang, and it's way less aerodynamic than a typical Mustang, so it does require quite a bit of throttle just to keep it at freeway speeds. And that's one of the determining factors for picking a power valve is, you know, the weight of the vehicle and the aerodynamics to a certain extent. So ideally, on normal freeway driving, you don't want to ever get in the power valve. The only time you want to get into the power valve is when you're passing somebody or maybe climbing a hill. But I find that this one, I'm in the power valve just cruising up slight grades, and even with just a stiff headwind, it'll be in it. So I probably should have picked one a little bit less aggressive. However, this may work, and the only way to find that out is just to try it. And that's what I'm going to do. So I'll bolt this back on and give it a short test drive and see where we're at. And if I need to punch it oversize, then I'll go ahead and pull it back out and try and find a 35 thousandths drill bit. That's really where I want it to be. I think that would be perfect. So anyway, that's how you lean on a power valve. So you just drill and tap those power valve channel restrictors, and it doesn't take a fancy tap, just a normal tap. You just want a couple threads in there for the brass plug to grab onto, and get yourself some of these 632 plugs. I have quite a few of them, and experiment with it until you get the fuel mixture where you need it to be. So that's it for this video. This is just something you want for fuel economy. All I'm messing with here is the primaries. On a race vehicle you wouldn't have to do that because you wouldn't be in the primaries very much. You go straight to the secondaries. Although, tuning the primaries is important because you don't want the primaries to be leaner than the secondaries. Because on a typical intake you'll have some cylinders that are richer than others. So you want it to be equal if you can get it there. So if you can get your primaries set up on the power valve to be running 12.5 to 1, then when you kick in the secondaries it does not change. Then you've got it pretty close, and it'll be an equal fuel mixture coming out of both primaries and secondaries. So that's kind of the goal for a performance vehicle. So it does matter, but it doesn't quite matter as much, I would think. So, alright, that's it for this video. I'm going to go ahead and bolt this on, give it a short test drive, and thanks for watching. So it's a lot better than it was, and I think the 30 thousandths power valve channel restrictor is going to work. It's about 12.5, 13 to 1 when I get the power valve in, and I'm okay with that. So it's actually raining out today, and it's a little cooler. And one of the bad things about carburetors is you can tune them perfectly, get them to where they're supplying the perfect amount of fuel, and then the weather changes and the mixture changes. In this case, we've got a lot of humidity in the air and it's running a little bit fatter because of that. The water vapor displaces the oxygen in the air, and more fuel than air, and we get a little bit rich mixture, and that's all the way through the curve. So I'm gonna have to check it again on a nice dry day once these rains move out. But I think it's going to be okay with this 30 thousandths power valve channel restrictor, and Anyway, I just wanted to add this, and thanks for watching.